It's January 17th, 2013 at 8:30 in the evening, and a lorry of 27 tons of Norwegian brown cheese has just caught fire inside of a road tunnel in one of the northernmost parts of Norway. It will take 4 days until the fire is put out, and almost 3 years and $4 million, almost 5.5 adjusted for inflation, until the tunnel is fully reopened again. But how did this happen? The brown cheese was headed south towards the town of Kjøpsvik when it caught fire. The driver managed to unhook the truck from the trailer, which was left standing around 150 meters or around 500 feet from the southern entrance of the over 3,500 meter or around 2 miles long tunnel. One driver even panicked and crashed his car into the tunnel wall, thinking it was his own car that had caught fire, before managing to turn his car around to escape. The cause of the fire was never figured out, but was believed to have probably been a fire in the wheel bearings. Brown cheese is made by boiling milk whey, leftovers from cheese production, with milk and cream for hours until it caramelizes into a fudge-like product, which has so much fat content, up to 30%, that it causes enormous amounts of energy to be released when it is burned. But it is not easily ignited. In this news segment from the time, firefighters tried to demonstrate the flammability of brown cheese, but it would not catch fire until they poured a good chunk of gasoline in with it. But once it was going, it went for a long time. This demonstrates that it was the combination of gasoline and brown cheese that made the tunnel fire so tenacious, not simply the brown cheese by itself. But at its height, the temperatures in the tunnel reached an incredible 1,200 degrees Celsius, or almost 2,200 Fahrenheit, which caused mountain rock to crack open, so that geologists had to go in after the fire to assess safety. They concluded that a lot of the exposed rock in the tunnel had to be torn down, and safety bolts that were damaged in the fire had to be replaced. There is not a lot of clear information available about exactly how the fire was put out, but this is what I was able to piece together. The people in charge of containing the situation did not want to send in any firefighters to begin with, for safety reasons, hoping the fire would burn itself out. But the brown cheese just wouldn't stop burning. But after 4 days, they entered and extinguished the fire before removing the remains of the trailer from the tunnel. Several safety bolts in the tunnel walls, along with ceiling light fixtures, had been damaged in the heat and had to be replaced. That mountain rock had also cracked in several places, and they were hesitant to send in workers before they could figure out how dangerous it would be to be in the tunnel. It was expected that the road would remain closed for 2 to 3 weeks, with drivers having to drive a 2-hour detour with several separate ferry trips because of the closed tunnel. And it would turn out to take far longer than 3 weeks before the tunnel was up and running again. After closer inspection and investigation, it turned out that the fire had caused much more extensive damage. In addition to cleaning to remove soot, smoke and gases, the lighting, electrical, emergency and automation systems, as well as fans for over a length of at least 1 kilometer, just over half a mile, had to be replaced. The insulating polyethylene foam in parts of the tunnel had also burned away, and new frost and water protection had to be installed, as the fire had left water to penetrate and freeze on both the roadway pavement surface and in cracks in the walls. A few days after the incident, international media companies like the BBC, Discovery Channel and NPR started covering the fire.
Norwegian TV probably said it best in their first reports from the scene of last week's goat cheese fire in a road tunnel in the Arctic.
De utbrente lampene I taket viser litt av brannens herjinger I Bratteli-tunnelen I Tyskland.
That's right, a goat cheese fire. Call it the fondue heard round the world. The incident, and Robert, it's the first of its kind in anyone's memory, occurred late last week near the city of Narvik. 20 tons of brown cheese were on a truck when it ignited. It took 4 days to extinguish the blaze. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the road tunnel remains closed and will be for about a week. So far, no official word yet on what started the fire burning.
So, what is this combustible brown cheese, we wondered? Are we safe? Does the UN know about this?
Well, we call it brunost.
That's Rollev Solholm, chief editor of the Norway Post in Oslo.
It's very unusual. I can't remember myself having heard ever that a load of brown cheese was caught fire in a tunnel.
A spokesman for the Norwegian Public Roads Administration says that in his 15 years in the department, this incident was the first cheese-related fire to close a road. He says he didn't know cheese burned so well.
A lot of English articles covering the fire mostly referred to the cheese as goat cheese, despite the fact that Norwegian sources only ever used the term brown cheese. Goat cheese is just one specific version of brown cheese, but just as or even more common is the version that is made from only cow's milk, and the version that contains a mix of the two. There is no indication anywhere I could find about which type of brown cheese was in the fire. I think the English-speaking reporters simply liked the sound of a goat cheese fire better than the sound of a brown cheese fire. But goat cheese can also be any type of cheese made from goat's milk, both brown and white. So it really is best to just call it brown cheese when talking about this fire. The village of Kjøpsvik, which is located on the north side of the Tysfjord, was left without a road due to the fire, and only had a connection southwards by ferry to Drag. The closed road created problems in the form of delayed mail delivery, which, among other things, caused problems for the delivery of important medicines and blood tests. The road to Kjøpsvik and the ferry connection further to Drag is with a daily traffic of about 540 passenger cars, one of Nordland's busiest ferry routes. It is also largely used as a route for heavy transport between Narvik and Fauske. On the 22nd of February 2013, the tunnel was finally reopened to traffic during the day, with only one side of the road passing the ongoing maintenance work at the time, accompanied by a lead car, and with the tunnel still being closed at night. The repair costs after the fire amounted to $800,000. But in addition, updates to security measures in the tunnel would push the cost up several $1,000,000. There were no emergency telephones inside the tunnel or other good warning options if an accident were to occur, and also no emergency rooms where drivers can seek refuge if they are stuck inside the tunnel during an emergency. Had there been more cars inside the tunnel when the fire started, it could have led to serious injuries, or worse. Let's jump ahead to 2015. The cost of the tunnel upgrades has now risen to around $3.5 million. Flammable polyethylene foam, which earlier had been completely exposed, has been covered with concrete to prevent fires from developing inside the tunnels. Back then, there were almost 200 Norwegian road tunnels that were not covered with this concrete layer. This was in large part why it took the firefighters so long before they could start stopping the fire, because of the dangerous gases created by the burning polyethylene. They also installed a new fire automation system, frost and water protection, fans, lighting, and electrical systems. After almost 3 years of roadwork in the tunnel and the queues this resulted in, the local population was getting tired of their extended commutes. One lead car driver reported that several drivers had threatened to crash into her, despite it clearly not being her decision to keep the tunnel work going, and in fact her work actually facilitated further use of the tunnel while under construction. Stupid people will always attack what is right in front of them, rather than going to the actual source of their frustration. But in November 2015, the tunnel finally opened completely with normal two-way simultaneous passaging. It's now 2025, 10 years later, and work is about to start up again. They worked between the 22nd of September and 21st of November, and then had to take a break until April 2026 because of the winter weather. A bunch of foundation sheets have deteriorated and is torn in several places, and some of the polyethylene foam is unsecure and needs to be removed. Over 160,000 square foot of foam has to be replaced, tunnel wall has to be secured with rock bolts, and the last remaining remnants of the brown cheese fire has to be cleared out, meaning the tunnel is back on traffic management with a lead vehicle again, and even being closed at night for some periods. This will cost at least an additional $4.3 million, which is on top of the $4 million that was spent 10 years ago. The work is estimated to be finished by July 2026 at the latest, but these kinds of projects always seem to take longer than what is promised. So, when posting this video, we are now at the start of 2026, and the tunnel work is still not fully finished, 13 years after the fire. I'm currently working on an ultimate brown cheese guide video, as well as a video about the 2011 Norwegian butter crisis, so depending on when you watch this, those may be available to you. If you've watched this far, please press the like button. It makes all the time I spend making these videos seem more worth it. And comments and subscriptions are even better. Thanks for watching.